before I level your business.
Okay.
And then...
This is perfect right here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, look at me. I'm a pro. I got it set up.
I think I'm good.
Okay, tell me your first name, last name. Tell me about your situation this morning with your children. Anything you want to.
Courtney Garrett. And I have lots of children who don't like to listen. So it's pretty much my day and morning, every day and morning. Got toddlers and teenagers who ask. One asks for food, the other asks for money. So that's pretty much my life and how things roll for our family.
Our identities as parents that become like, I am a parent of children who don't listen to me.
I literally, like, I don't even try anymore. I'm like, okay, whatever, it's your world. I'm just here.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't drown or do anything weird.
Yeah. What is it like being a parent of teenagers and toddlers?
Well, first of all, they fight like they're the same age. Let's start there.
Oh, yeah.
And then I have twins, which are the two toddlers. So, of course, they're either with each other or completely against each other. And the teenagers, again, if I'm not an ATM, I'm usually a Uber. So, and they don't ask for permission to do anything. They just ask for money and a ride to get there. And I'm like, so when are you going to ask, can you go?
No. We'll just assume you say yes.
I mean, that's pretty much how it goes.
Goodness gracious. Courtney Garrett of CMURC.
Yes, that's me.
I'm excited to talk to you. We talk a lot.
Yes, we do.
Never in this context, though. I'm excited to talk to you about your podcast.
Yes.
All sorts of fun things. Let's start with the 101, though, because some folks in the community might see, like, CMURC. And, of course, it's in the SVRC building.
Yes.
And there's acronyms and C's all over the place.
Absolutely. Acronyms with C's, S's, and everything else.
So imagine I'm somebody who had no idea what CMURC is. Give me kind of the rundown. What is that?
So essentially, CMURC is an entrepreneurial support organization. So we support entrepreneurs throughout any stage of their journey. So whether that's in the beginning stages, whether that's commercialization, whether that's, hey, I've been in business 14 years and I still haven't figured it out. We support entrepreneurs at any stage of their growth. And we also have amazing co-working spaces throughout the Great Lakes Bay region. So, we have a place where you can learn and connect. We have programs where you can understand the business journey. And then we also have corporate partnerships. So it just helps serve the mission of CMURC. So
I love the really like multi-layered nature of CMURC because say that I'm a person, I travel around the region a lot and I just need a place to park it for a day. I'm in and out with clients in Mount Pleasant or in Midland or Saginaw, and it makes sense for me to have a location in each one of those communities.
Yes.
I can do that through CMURC.
Absolutely.
And then if I'm a person that wants some hands-on help, I want some cultivation of my business,
Absolutely.
I can get that there. I can get the networking. It is really a hub for entrepreneurs.
Yes, it is. It's an amazing ecosystem for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and corporations alike. So if you are a corporation that supports entrepreneurs and supports the mission of entrepreneurship, hey, we have space for you as well. So we are a beautiful blending tree is what I call it. And it's always a labor of love.
Yeah, a beautiful blending tree. And every time I pop into CMURC, of course, I see like Bob Johnson walking around talking to people. Of course. You see Bob. But then along with Bob, you see other entrepreneurs, people that like kind of this really cool mingling of people. And I know that whenever I go to CMURC, I'm going to see somebody that I know, or I'm going to get connected to somebody new. Yeah. And if I'm a new entrepreneur, that's half the game is finding who I have to be connected to.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Again, if one thing about CMURC, I've been there a little bit over 5 years. And I feel like most of my friends are there. Like we have the hashtag work where your friends are. And that's pretty much what it is. It's you kind of walk in and you're like, okay, hey, you, hey, you, hey. And then learning and meeting new people. It was a great way to bridge the gap between, again, resources and people, and understanding, hey, there are resources for entrepreneurship here. So
yeah, I hate giving advice, but I'm gonna give it some advice. If you're a new entrepreneur here in the city of Saginaw, you got to go where the people are.
Yes,
like you got to put yourself where the people are. I was one, and I still am one. I'm stubbornly independent. I can do it myself. I can do all of these things. But sooner or later, that's going to catch up to you. You're going to feel either yourself cut off on the business side because you kind of hit this ceiling. Like you've done all the Facebook posting to your family and friends, and you're wondering why nobody else is going to buy my handbags. Well, your network isn't big enough. Yes. You don't have enough eyeballs on what you're doing. And then just like having your own little community of fellow entrepreneurs, even if they don't give you any kind of advice, just that motivation to feel like other people are in it, they're being successful, they're trying hard, they're overcoming failure. Like you got to be connected to that.
Absolutely. And it's never a competition with all the different businesses. We've got plenty of businesses that have the same service or offer the same products, but it's all about that collaboration. So get in, collaborate, learn, connect, grow. Essentially, those are all the key things that you can do in a beautiful shared workspace. Yeah,
it is beautiful. Maybe talk to me about how it's changed over the 5 years that you've been there, because I think it's when you walk in now compared to what it was, it's very striking.
Absolutely.
What has happened. So tell me about that.
So I would say 5 years ago, just talking a little bit of my journey, I started out in hospitality. I didn't know anything much about entrepreneurship, but one thing I did know is how to run a hotel. So, essentially it may not be mine, but I can run it and make sure it's taken care of. Again, I kind of put those two pieces together, and that's kind of how I jumped into CMURC. And it kind of started with this, again, entrepreneur like me. And I feel like if we want to be able to service and support the entrepreneurs that are in the community that we serve, the doors and the people in it have to look and feel like the entrepreneur that wants the assistance. So it's all about, again, growth and getting people aware and knowing that, this place is for you too. So come on in. And it started out with, hey, reaching out to all friends and family, like, hey, come check this space out. I can tell you now, my mom's had a membership since before I started.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
Way to support.
I know I've kicked her out a couple of offices before because I needed to sell them, because sales comes first. But
you come first, Mom. But we got to sell those spaces.
Yeah, we got to sell those spaces. But it's all about meeting and greeting the entrepreneur like you. So it's evolved. We've grown. We've added another location, the Midland location, on since I've been with the organization, and we've also renovated our headquartered location in Mount Pleasant. So that launch was last week, and it was absolutely beautiful.
It used to be when you walked into CMURC, you'd see kind of that opening lounge area with the bar, and it's super cozy. The vibe is great. If you're weirded out by co-working spaces, this would not be, as somebody who's very introverted and very weirded out by co-working spaces, you don't get that impression when you go in there. It's not like you're forced to talk to people walking by your cubicle all the time and am I really going to get work done? Yes, of course you are. You can go use that shared space, you can rent something, but you walk in and it's got this great bar area, but you walk to the right, and it used to be this kind of lined around the outside perimeter of little cubicle spaces, office spaces, but now it is just packed to the gills, more and more.
The demand was there. Awesome. And I can say, we started out with, again, those perimeter of offices around the room in that big open space. But it was time to build. It was time to build more offices. The demand was there. People wanted to be a part of that new shiny thing. Yeah. And if you weren't a part of the co-work space, you were missing out. So it was the place to be. Yeah. And I feel like that's where that hashtag work where your friends are. So you can come in and work with everybody that you know. So of course we built out a phase 2. We added, I believe, about 14 more offices and about 8 more desks. So it was literally a wild time, and it was right after COVID. So one thing about COVID, people, it did change a little bit, but for us, it just kept going. It just kept going because people downsized, and instead of having those big, large offices with extremes amounts of overhead, it's let's get some smaller space. Let's figure out and that's the reason why we diversified our space like we did.
Yeah, and you also saw during COVID a lot of folks who had been kind of gnawing on an idea for a business for a long time suddenly jump on that idea and say, okay, well, I'm not going to work. Now's the time to really address my side hustle, or now's the time I just got fired, or I feel like I could get fired any second. I need some kind of safety net I need to create for myself. And so you saw this entrepreneurial drive really start in COVID. And I think one of the things that's impressed me so much about the city of Saginaw is that drive is still there.
Yes, it is.
It wasn't just like the pandemic flash in the pan where everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and then it dies off in 2022. We're here in 2024 and it's still there. New businesses, new people trying things, new events popping up all the time.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you this because you're really in this hub of Saginaw entrepreneurship. Talk to me about the state of being an entrepreneur in Saginaw.
I mean, one thing about the folks in Saginaw, the grit and grind and the hustle is always in them.
And that's real grit and grind. So lots of communities use that word grit, like we're a gritty community. And you might be gritty, but you're not Saginaw grit. Absolutely. So continue.
The grit and grind and the hustle is there. So one thing about being an entrepreneur in Saginaw, again, because we have that hustle and that grit and the grind, we're going to go for what we can to make sure that business grows. So whether that's tapping into each and every piece of resources. Okay, I'm here. I've got my LLC. What's next? Where do I go? How do I get there? And again, it's all about that collaboration and finding and connecting with mentors and connecting with other entrepreneurs. And, being an entrepreneur in Saginaw, it's just all about working and grinding and getting in and just doing what you love and what you have a passion for.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest encouragement I would say if I gathered the entire entrepreneurial community of Saginaw into one place is like the fuel is there.
Yes,
like
it is.
the things that you can't teach are there. Like that drive to make something out of nothing and be creative and help the community and fill a gap. Like all of that stuff that you can't teach is there. What we really need is taking advantage of the available resources that are around us. So yes, you're great at music, whatever it is you do. You got to get connected to CMURC so they can say, okay, you are a creative person. We can help you on the business side of it.
Yes.
So looking at CMURC, getting networked, SBDC as well, free assistance from the state.
Yes.
All you got to do is reach out to them and they will lead you through every single thing. Grant funding and all of those things, you have to be aware of those resources because you don't want to spend the next 30 years reinventing the wheel.
That part.
Making mistakes and screwing up. Like, imagine if you could sit in front of somebody and shave 10 years off your timeline of success.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, I hear a lot sometimes where it says, I don't know about everything that's happening. I don't see that. I don't see until it's over. Okay, let's figure out how to fix your algorithm.
Yep.
I'm always at that. I'm always there. Hey, let's change who you're interacting with on social media. Find every single EDO. Find every single entrepreneur support organization. Go follow every single chamber in the Great Lakes Bay region. Go find every person that you feel is a great entrepreneur in your area. Follow them. So therefore you can see the different resources. You can see the different events that happen. You just have to change what you're interacting with in order for you to see it more.
Yep. If you want to leverage social media to help your journey as an entrepreneur, you got to craft it a little
Yeah.
bit. You get mom and dad and grandma, they're going to cheer you on.
Yeah.
They're not going to support your business for the next 25 years. So like great for moral support, but you got to reach out to those new potential customers, those new people that can help you level up, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about how, like, you have a podcast.
I have a podcast.
Before, tease it a little bit though. Like, where did the idea come from? Like, why start a podcast in a time when everybody's starting podcasts? What's the purpose?
Yeah, that's great question. So, entrepreneur like me started out, I'd actually say a few years ago, and it started out where we realized that there was a lot of different opportunity gaps when it comes to funding and capital for minorities, women, veteran-owned businesses. There is a huge gap in those pieces. So Entrepreneur Like Me came about as, again, we want to be able to see the entrepreneur that looks like us or feels like us or works like us. So
which is true for all kinds of entrepreneurs. I just want to put that in there because I thought about this as you were talking about that earlier. Like, I might walk into a room with a really successful entrepreneurs. But if our vibe isn't the same, like they might be very successful, but I'm not necessarily going to pursue networking with them. Like maybe they're very blue or white collar, like things like that. Like amazing, great people probably, but I'm going to reach out to somebody who has a little bit more of my vibe. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
And we kind of talk about my CEO. She started 15 years ago, and she walked into rooms and she didn't really find too many people that look or felt like her. And me starting out 5 years ago, you go to the events and you're like, hey, you got to go to this event. You got to go to this event. Go try out this county. And it's like, okay, but I mean, do I open this door? Because am I supposed to be here? Like, you just think like you want to be able to see and feel and deal with people that look and work like you. So that's how the Entrepreneur Like Me initiative started. So that is a whole initiative. We started out with impact days, advise me sessions where we brought in people to advise us on what those barriers to entry look like. So we found out capital was a huge barrier to entry. So we had a year-long series about how to open up those funding gaps, brought in bankers and, funding resources to talk about what it is to be funded as an entrepreneur. However, we also seen that there's ways that entrepreneur communicates, and podcasts were a huge thing. And how do we get stories across about real entrepreneurs and their journeys? But, you do it right through a podcast. Let's talk, let's chat, let's have a conversation. Plus, people come to me about conversations all the time. So let's just record these things, you know? So January of 2024, we had an open office. Aaron, our awesome fearless leader, said, listen, let's put a podcast room in here. Awesome. Cool. We pulled it together, got one of the greatest artists in the county, Devon Collins, to do a beautiful mural of Stevie Wonder. We've asked wonderful.
That's killer, dude.
It's so killer. Every time I see it, it's like amazing. Asked Phil to come in and give me some tips on equipment. Hey. And we ran. 10 days later, we have a podcast room, and it is open to the public to use on a day pass. But we decided to go ahead and start our own little Entrepreneur Like Me podcast with, of course, yours truly as the host. Now, that's a scary piece and a scary thought.
So I really wanted to, let's talk about entrepreneurs first in the podcast, and then we'll talk about the podcast itself, because I really want to talk to you about like how you're feeling about it and what like the process of creating it, because I see so many people wanting to dip their toes into this world, and I think they absolutely should. But getting some of your perspective, I think, would be great. So with entrepreneurs in the podcast, I love this idea of entrepreneurs from the community teaching other entrepreneurs also from the community, because sometimes the breakdown with like social media advice is, like Gary V's been in the game for 35 years or something ridiculous. And the things that Gary V is doing right now might work for him, but not necessarily for me having zero experience in a business world. Like, I just need to know what my next step is. I don't need to know how to scale my company to $100 million a year. I need to know like what do I do when I leave the house? Like, what should I do first?
Absolutely.
And so sitting down and listening to these conversations with you, I, as an entrepreneur, I can get those little tips from somebody who might be a little bit further down the road from me, but not so far where the advice doesn't apply anymore.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And one thing about the entrepreneurs, once they're on the mic, they talk about how they started and the struggles that they went through to start. So knowing that someone else may feel like, okay, I'm struggling, I'm never going to get this off the ground, like I'm just going to give up. Those entrepreneurs had those struggles and they talk about each and every piece. I learned so much just talking to them, and most of them I know already, but just kind of diving a little bit deeper into their journey helped me understand that, they went through barriers. Some of them went through barriers that they haven't crossed those hurdles yet. Mm-hmm. I talked to Alicia. First thing she said was, hey, some of these obstacles I'm not even over yet. So, it's still a work in progress. It's still a fluid plan. It's still a fluid journey. So that's one thing about entrepreneurship. You may not get it right the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, but it's a process. So trust the process.
Yeah, you got to just keep hacking your way through. I love that approach of, I'm not here as a guru. I'm not here as like here's my guide to entrepreneurship and do all these things. Like, I'm still fighting through these things. I don't have answers for this either. And that's kind of a fun perspective, because sometimes you don't want to get preached at. You want somebody to be like, yeah, I'm struggling with marketing right now. This is kind of what I'm thinking. This didn't really work, and I'm wondering what my next step is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they talk about the resources that they use to get from point A to point B. And, this was helpful. Go reach out to this person. Or just the entrepreneur that said, hey, I had 5 or 6 different ideas before I got to this one. Yeah. And it's okay.
Yep.
You're going to go through those.
Yeah. I one of the great examples I think about is Instagram. So Instagram started off as an app called, I'm going to blank on the name, but it was an app designed for friends to meet up at whiskey bars. So you would go to the bar and you would like take I believe it was a picture of you at the bar and check in.
Oh, wow.
And that's how you would meet up with people. And that was the start of Instagram. And of course that idea bombed. Like you don't have enough of an audience to want to go to whiskey bars. What people really loved was taking photos and sharing it to social media. And so Instagram saw that and said, well, we really like whiskey bars, but the people we're trying to sell to do not.
There you go.
So how about we take the one piece of this idea that worked and double down on a photo sharing app where friends can just comment on photos and things like that. And that was the start of Instagram.
Oh, wow.
And I love that, because we get into entrepreneurship a lot of times with thinking that our first idea is our best idea, because it's the thing that got us off the couch. It's the thing that we spent the last 4 years thinking about a name for the business and designing a logo on Canva, and we spent all this time. And your first idea might be the best idea. Yeah. But chances are it's the clue to what is actually your best idea. And so you got to look at it and say, what do people like? What do they not like? I'm going to double down on that. I'm going to reiterate. I'm not going to be too emotionally attached to my little baby of an idea. Yeah. If I've got to, put it away, I got to put it away. But you got to keep hacking your way through it.
Yes, you do. Yep. And again, like you said, what do the people like?
Yeah.
They're the end user. They're the buying customer. You might like lilies and dandelions all day long, but does the customer want those products?
Yes.
So let's figure that out. Market research is huge, everybody.
Yes, it is. It's so huge. And I wanted to say that to the entrepreneur community in Saginaw too, is like I see the frustration sometimes bubble up on social media. Why didn't anybody come to my event? Why isn't anybody buying my thing? One, it could be a marketing issue. You're just not reaching the people that are going to buy your bag, or they're going to buy your whatever it is, your popsicles or whatever it is. But it also just might be like a market fit issue. Yeah. Like you might really, really like your pickle flavored lemonade. Yeah. And you might think it's killer. Yeah. But 47,000 people in the city of Saginaw all say no, you're not going to be able to sell it.
There you go.
So you got to look at your product market fit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's been your biggest takeaway? How many episodes have you done?
So we are episode 6 comes out this Friday. Oh, super excited! So now we're on episode 6 episodes.
Yeah. And by the time this runs, you will have published episode 6. Yeah. So who's on episode 6?
Episode 6 is Ariel Roth from Bay City. Yeah. She's awesome. She owns 3 different businesses. So she's got photography, boudoir, and elemental marketing. So she's got lots of different things happening. Her story is beautiful. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to sit down with her. So
yeah, I want to give you props, Ariel, because you're so public with like your journey of sobriety and not only your journey, but like how you're also encouraging and taking people along for the ride with you, and you're also encouraging them. If this is a path you want to go down, you absolutely should, and I'm going to encourage you. So I want to give you a shout out. That's super cool.
Yeah, shout out to her. She's amazing. Yeah. I felt so much love in the room when talking to her. She's just a great person to connect with. Yep.
So listen to that episode. Who else has been on your show?
So I've had Alicia Martin Lane, Cakes the Great, Sierra Crudup, Delicious Sweets, Miss Jemiah Ryan with Ryan & Co. with her amazing bags.
Amazing.
If you need a designer bag, go find Jemiah, please.
Yeah, I don't even buy bags, but I want to buy a bag from Jemiah.
Oh, every time she's got on a bag, I'm like, okay, what's that bag and when does it come out?
Yep. Yeah. I remember the first Saginaw soup that she won. Afterwards, everybody was just up there going like, so can you sell that bag to me right now? Like, no. Like, yeah, but what if I really want it right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that work tote's available now, so go get it. And then I've also had Dr. Chris Dillard with iMix Mobile, who makes the best drinks in the Great Lakes region. She is awesome. And then Brandy Bates Johnson. She's been on with Shangri-La Candle Co.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's a crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, people just binge all those episodes. Because even if you're not an entrepreneur, it's a really cool window into people in your community and their lives and their stories and what they go through so that we can have our delicious sweets bake shop. Like absolutely. I can show up and I can eat as much sweet potato pound cake as I want. But knowing Sierra behind the scenes and what she's gone through to get to that point, I think is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Her journey is amazing. And one thing she talks about in her episode is, she closed a few locations. That doesn't mean that all love's lost. That means her one thriving location is doing absolutely amazing. It's doing well, and that works for her and her business.
Yes. I love that you brought up the failure part. I don't want to even call it a failure, but like the closing part. Like what happens when you do have to pivot your idea?
Yeah.
When you're like, I'm so sad because it sounds like people don't really want this shirt that I make, but I really like this shirt. Like all of that is, you're going to go through it.
Yeah.
With Instagram advice, kind of the self-help thing, it's like, well, when times are tough, you just got to keep going. And it doesn't really convey how heavy that emotion is. Like what it means to close a location, what it means to say nobody wants this, so I have to start making something else. Like you're going to be really sad. And you're going to want to quit and all those things. And hearing somebody like Sierra, who everybody loves and her product is amazing, talk about, I had to close these locations because they weren't working, I think is really encouraging.
Yes, it is. And it was a great moment, great episode. And one thing about the episodes, a lot of them are, talking about what's next for them. So they're talking about pieces that you may not know yet. Okay. So it's like I heard it here first thing and I'm excited.
Yeah, you can get the early scoop.
Early scoop.
Let's talk about the whole ordeal of the podcast. Like because I want you to be a little bit vulnerable here if you're safe, if you're feeling safe. Because we had some conversations kind of around the beginning of it, and tell me about how you were feeling going into this.
I am not going to lie. It was the scariest thing I've ever done.
Really?
It was crazy. Like, I probably was supposed to start this podcast back in like March or April. And for some reason, it just didn't get there.
Yeah.
Just because I was so nervous. And
nervous about what? Why?
I think my voice and just being, it's one thing to talk back and forth to someone like this. But knowing that there may be a lot more listeners on the other side, it's not like you can't get it wrong, but it's like, I know how I am sometimes, and I just have to make sure that I just have to make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
and I say the right things and everything is here. So you don't get to read and you don't get to do, you got to make sure that you're having that good conversations, because our conversations can get real deep, but I got to make sure it's still,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a performance element to the podcast to doing a podcast that I think people don't really appreciate.
Yeah.
And like at one level, yes, it's a conversation, but it's also a little bit of a performance side of it as a host, because you're guiding the conversation and you're shaping the conversation. And then there's another layer on top of it. And I'm not a huge Gary Vee fan, but he said something once about when he's with a guest, and if the guest is like going off on a crazy tangent, he was like, I love tangents, but if I'm thinking my audience isn't going to get anything out of this, he's like, I'm going to cut them off and I'm going to say, hey, let's bring it back to this. Because at the same time, you're an advocate for the audience as well, saying, what do the people that listen to me want to hear?
Yeah.
And so you're listening to the person and you're trying to be organic, but at the same time, you're advocating for the audience and all of those things. And so it's a lot. It's more than just hitting record and saying, talk to me.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. You're doing, it's almost like all these different jobs. You have to make sure that, the conversation is still going. It's still engaging for the audience.
Yep.
You've got the sounds. They're not moving away from the mic.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. And then you just kind of, you get a little antsy because you want to talk and you want to continue the conversation. But 35 minutes later, you're like, okay, I got to keep, the audience engaged. So now we have to kind of cut it a little bit. But it is literally like you said, a performance piece.
And this is something that I'm still working on too. Is I think one of the traps we fall into when we start podcasts and we start this is like we try to mimic a personality that we think we should be as we're talking. Like I have to be very professional or I have to be, X, Y, and Z. When I think one of the things I told you was just like, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's why people want to listen to you, because they want to hear Courtney talk to somebody else who's also themselves. Yeah. And I think like that's something that I'm still kind of unraveling, and I'm here a couple years into this and trying to figure out, well, who am I really? And how do I let that shine as opposed to like something that's contrived?
Absolutely. Because sometimes when I hear my voice, I'm like, is that, I don't know if that's supposed to be how I talk. It's just odd. I don't picture my voice for what I look like in the mirror. So sometimes it gets a little wonky. Yeah,
I have a very nasally kind of this sometimes, and that makes me self-conscious. What also makes me self-conscious when I listen back to episodes is obvious questions that I should have asked that I missed
all the time. Yeah, I just did. Myself and Coffee, Charlene Orange, recorded a show a couple of days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Charlene.
And she's amazing. She just talked a little, about her journey. But after we got off, she's like, oh, well, maybe I should have said this and maybe I should have said that. And I'm like, wait, maybe I should have asked that question.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, so do we do part 2?
Yeah. I think, absolutely. You should do a part 2. I like both you guys. I'd listen to you twice.
Yeah.
That craft of it, because it's what my encouragement to people who want to do a podcast is do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Like everybody should have one. Even if you don't have more than 2 listeners, your mom and your cousin who lives in Memphis listening to you should do it, because like here's an opportunity for you to sit down from across another or another person and do something that we don't do often enough.
Yes.
Which is just lock yourself in and say, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm going to be really interested in you for the next 60 minutes, because you leave feeling like some kind of way that you can't get any other way.
Yeah. You actually have a real conversation.
Yes.
Nowadays, most of our conversations are 1, social media, 2, through text. Phone calls, I don't really do much of unless I have to. So just to sit down and have a real conversation with someone, it really, really, really makes me kind of happy, because I learn more. I know a lot about you just because passing and what we do, but just to sit down and really figure out like what's really going on. Are you, what do you need?
Yep.
Because essentially that's what an entrepreneur support organization is. What is it that you need so we can help you get and cross that bridge?
Yep. The like sitting down and listening to somebody.
Yes.
It's that skill. It's a craft. It's a necessity. And like sitting down and doing a podcast with somebody creates that opportunity to do it. It creates a reason to do it. Even if you're not into podcasts, if you don't want to do one, invite somebody for a cup of coffee for the sole goal of talking to them for 60 minutes.
Yes.
Because we never really do that either when we say, hey, can you meet up at Red Eye for, let's hang out and grab some coffee. There's always like an ulterior motive.
There's always an ask.
Yeah, there's an ask, or I need something, or can I get your advice? Which is good, but like go in there without any rules and just go in and say, I'm going to make this person feel like they're a celebrity for the next 60 minutes because I'm interested in them.
Yeah, and then I'm not gonna lie, they get nervous too.
Yeah,
your other person on the other side, they get nervous, and I have to calm down their nerves. I'm like, well, you don't even know how nervous I am. This is actually killing me. Yeah. But we'll work it through.
This is scary for both of us. So you went through the process of coming up with the idea and then building the room.
Yeah.
What was there anything that surprised you about it, or something that you didn't expect, either positive or negative?
It's not that hard.
Oh,
it's really not.
I like that.
I think the scary part was just the start. Like I needed to start.
That sounds very entrepreneurial.
Yes, I just needed to start. I needed to jump in and put my toes in there. It's not that hard. Again, it's a conversation. I have them all the time.
Yep.
We're just recording it. And I think what a lot of it has kind of taken a little bit of pressure off right now is there's no visual right now. Yeah. So that does take a little bit of the pressure off.
Why, hello, camera.
Hi. I'm a little scared of you, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You got nice light at least.
Yeah.
And stuff on.
But yeah, there's no visuals right now. So it's really that real podcast that you can listen to in your car, on your way to work, if you have a little bit of 30-minute drive, because all the episodes are about between 29 and 34 minutes. So they're easy listens. You can listen to them, like I said, on your way to work, on your way to dinner, whatever. Do it while you're working out. Just get a little bit of motivation while you're working out. But it's not that hard, Phil. It's not. It's, it's just a conversation, and it's even with the people that I don't know. Ariel was the first time I've met her.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Those are fun.
Those are fun, because you really learn a lot. And the conversation was so organic, even though I'd never met her before. It was beautiful. Yeah. So I'm cool because it's not that hard.
Oh, yeah. I love to hear that. You just got to jump in and do it.
Yeah.
And somebody else came up to me 2 weeks ago or so. I ran into them going into a building, and they were talking to me about this podcast that they wanted to start, and it was focused on dads. It was a couple dads, and they would invite other dads on, and the whole angle was not dads giving dad advice to dads because they're great dads, but dads talking about something that they can't handle, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about my 2-year-old. And I love that angle of that humility of we're not gurus. We're just dads talking about dad stuff. And that was the advice I gave him, because it sounded like he was gnawing on the idea for a long time. And I said, you know what? Just get your 2 dad friends together in a room, hit record, and do your first episode tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you might find out that this is the most amazing idea you've ever had in your life, and you're on fire. And that motivation is going to that energy is going to give you motivation to do what you got to do.
Absolutely.
You also might find that it was really terrible and not at all what you thought it was going to be. And it was too hard, and you were nervous, and there's lots of ums and uhs, and you might think like, this was not a good idea. I need to do something else. And now you know, and you don't have to think for the next 3 years, like I should be starting a podcast. Like, no, hit record, figure it out. Yeah, and decide right now.
That's so funny you say the uns and uhs, because I was nervous about that.
Yeah.
But I realized that I don't even say that.
And it's all part of the process. And if you do, you just thankfully, not a huge amount of people listen to your early episodes, and you just get better.
You get better. That's it.
I want to give one encouragement to folks listening to listen, to watch these conversations, to listen to them, not just on your podcast, not just on this podcast, but anytime somebody is doing work like this locally, watch them. Feeling Good podcast. Like if you're in the music scene, listen to them, because this is a really powerful way to get connected to other people in your community. And you can be driving, you can be doing something else, and you're missing out if you don't know these people, if you're not listening to them in some way. So I want to, 24 minutes, 35 minutes, 45 minutes. It's a chunk of time, but do it passively. Do it once a week. Get connected somehow. Get connected. Yeah.
It's the best way. And these entrepreneurs have a passion, and they're working really hard. So listen to their stories, listen to their journeys.
Heck yeah. So if people want to listen, where do they go to listen?
Okay, so I'm excited to say that we're on all the podcast streaming platforms.
Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, subscribe. Spotify, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, however you decide. But you also can find us right on our website, so CMURC.com, and that's /ELM podcast.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to be on the podcast, how do I do that?
Okay. So we do have slots for guests. So if you want to share your story and your journey, same website, CMURC.com/ELM podcast. There is a link down there that says book now, and you can book a time slot with me, which are typically on Mondays and Fridays. So
do it, people. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. Reach out to Courtney at CMURC, Entrepreneur Like Me podcast. Courtney Garrett, thanks for all the work you do with CMURC. Thanks for this podcast. Thanks for being you.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
Yay!
See, you're a pro.